The massive war hall of the Korthak Empire buzzed with the sound of 1,000 different alien voices. Representatives from across the galaxy had gathered on the fortress world of Drakmor to witness what would surely be the most important declaration in galactic history. The air was thick with tension and the metallic scent of various alien atmospheres mixing in the environmental processors. Admiral Zexthul stood at the center of the Great Hall, his crimson scales gleaming under the harsh lights. At nearly 12 feet tall, with razor-sharp claws and teeth that could tear through starship hull plating, he was the perfect example of Korthak superiority. His four arms spread wide as he addressed the gathered delegates, his voice booming across the chamber. "Fellow beings of the galaxy," he roared, "today marks the end of an era of weakness and the beginning of true order. For too long, our galaxy has been plagued by soft species who value peace over strength, cooperation over domination. No more." The Korthak delegation behind him let out a chorus of war cries that made several smaller species visibly tremble. These were beings who had evolved on a world where everything wanted to kill them. Their planet had gravity 3 times that of most inhabited worlds, an atmosphere so toxic it could melt the lungs of lesser species, and predators so vicious that Korthak children learned to fight before they could walk. We, the Korthak Empire, hereby claim the title of Ultimate Deathworlders. Zexthul's declaration echoed through the hall. We are the apex of evolution, the peak of survival adaptation, the ultimate expression of what it means to be truly alive in a universe that wants you dead. The reaction was immediate and varied. The crystalline Velthari representatives chimed in harmonious fear, their translucent bodies flickering with anxiety patterns. The gas giant dwelling Nephilim floated nervously in their containment suits, their tentacles writhing. Even the proud Rakthas warriors, themselves no strangers to violence, seemed subdued by the Korthak's overwhelming presence. Ambassador Yilneth of the Galactic Council stepped forward, her blue skin pale with worry. The Altarian diplomat had seen many species rise and fall, but never had she encountered such raw, unbridled aggression packaged in such a clearly superior physical form. "Admiral Zexthul," she said, her voice carefully controlled, "the Galactic Council recognizes the impressive capabilities of your species. However, the title of Ultimate Deathworlders is not simply claimed. It must be earned through demonstration and verified by independent assessment." Zexthul's laugh was like the roar of a plasma cannon. "Demonstration? Very well, soft one. Observe." He gestured to a massive view screen that descended from the ceiling. The image showed a barren, hostile world, one of the Korthak testing planets. The surface was a hellscape of active volcanoes, toxic storms, and gravitational anomalies that would crush most species instantly. "This is Neth Joel, one of our training worlds," Zexthul explained with pride. "The gravity is 4 times galactic standard. The atmosphere is pure sulfuric acid. The surface temperature fluctuates between -200 and +800 degrees. The wildlife includes the Feyrak death serpents, whose venom could dissolve molecular bonds, and the mountain stalkers, who hunt in packs and can tear through titanium armor with their bare claws." The view screen showed Korthak warriors moving across this hellscape like it was a pleasant garden stroll. They fought massive predators with nothing but hand weapons, swam through acid lakes, and scaled cliff faces in the midst of volcanic eruptions. What would be certain death for any other known species was merely a training exercise for them. "Impressive," admitted General Vaktar of the Hegemony, a militaristic alliance known for their own warriors. "But physical prowess alone does not make one the ultimate anything. What of your technology? Your strategic capabilities?" Zexthul's 4 eyes gleamed with predatory satisfaction. "An excellent question, General. Perhaps you would like to see our latest conquest?" The screen changed to show space battle footage. Korthak warships, looking more like massive predatory beasts than traditional vessels, tore through the defenses of an unknown world. Their weapons didn't just destroy enemy ships, they consumed them, breaking down their molecular structure and adding the mass to their own vessels. The Zilnoth Collective thought themselves safe behind their quantum barriers and temporal shields, Zexthal narrated as the assembled delegates watched in horror. They had held off invaders for 3,000 years. We broke their defenses in 6 hours. The footage showed Korthak warriors boarding the enemy stations. What happened next was barely suitable for viewing, even in a war council. The Zilnoth were a peaceful species, evolved from herbivores on a garden world. They had advanced technology, but no understanding of true violence. The Korthak warriors moved through their stations like a force of nature, unstoppable and utterly merciless. Their technology was impressive. Zexthal continued casually. We absorb it all. Their knowledge of quantum mechanics has improved our shield systems by 30%. Their temporal research will allow us to attack enemies before they even know we exist. Representative Quindal of the Merchant Federation spoke up, his voice shaky. Surely the Galactic Council will not stand for such unprovoked aggression. There are laws, treaties, codes of conduct. The Admiral's laugh this time was even more terrifying than before. Laws? Treaties? These are the inventions of the weak to restrain the strong. We recognize no law but the law of strength, no treaty but the treaty written in blood and victory. He gestured again, and the screen showed a map of the galaxy. Korthak territories were expanding rapidly, colored in aggressive red. Dozens of systems that had been independent just months ago now bore the Korthak symbol. In the past year alone, we have conquered 47 star systems, Zexthal announced. Not through lengthy diplomatic processes or economic pressure, but through the simple application of superior force. Each victory makes us stronger, adds to our resources, and proves our natural right to rule. The assembled delegates began to murmur among themselves. Some spoke of immediate military alliance against the Korthak threat. Others discussed evacuation plans for their homeworlds. A few, mostly from warrior cultures themselves, seemed to be considering whether joining the Korthak Empire might be preferable to being conquered by it. But we are not unreasonable, the Admiral continued, his tone taking on an almost magnanimous quality. We understand that not all species can achieve our level of perfection. Therefore, we offer a choice to all present. Submit willingly to Korthak rule, and you'll be allowed to continue existing as our vassals. Your species will serve the Empire, contribute to our war effort, and, in return, you will receive our protection from the chaos that is coming. And if we refuse? Ambassador Yilneth asked, though her voice suggested she already knew the answer. Then you will learn firsthand why we are the ultimate Deathworlders, Zexthal replied simply. We will come for your worlds as we came for the Zilnoth, as we came for the Tekmari, as we came for the proud Vashti warrior clans who thought their martial traditions could stand against true apex predators. The screen showed brief clips of each conquest. Worlds burning, fleets scattered like leaves in a storm, and, always, the red banner of the Korthak Empire rising over the wreckage. You have one standard galactic week to consider our offer, the Admiral announced. After that, we will begin demonstrating why the title Ultimate Deathworlder belongs to us alone. As the delegates began to file out in shocked silence, many already frantically communicating with their home governments, Zexthal turned to his aide, a younger Korthak warrior whose scars told stories of a dozen campaigns. What do you think, Garthex? The Admiral asked. Will any of them be foolish enough to resist? The younger warrior's predatory grin matched his superior's. I hope so, Admiral. It has been too long since we faced a real challenge. These soft galaxy dwellers barely provide enough resistance to keep our warriors sharp. Zexthal nodded, his 4 arms crossed in satisfaction. Indeed, though I suspect the real test of our claim will come not from these known species, but from whatever unknown threats lurk in the unexplored regions of the galaxy. The universe is vast, and somewhere out there may be others who think they deserve the title we have claimed. Neither of them could imagine how prophetic those words would prove to be. In the distant spiral arm of the galaxy, on a small blue world orbiting an unremarkable yellow star, a species that called themselves human was just beginning to reach for the stars. They knew nothing of the Korthak Empire or its claims of ultimate superiority, but they would learn soon enough. And when they did, the galaxy would discover what a real Deathworld species looked like. The mining station Kepler 442 was having what Chief Engineer Sarachon considered a perfectly normal day when everything went sideways. The massive orbital platform hung in space above the mineral-rich asteroid field like a metal spider, its collection arms constantly harvesting rare metals that Earth's growing space industry desperately needed. Another load of palladium coming in, Chief, called out Marcus Rodriguez from the control station. That's the third one today. We're going to hit quota early this month. Sarah nodded, reviewing the daily reports on her tablet. 2 years of running this operation had taught her to appreciate the routine. Out here, 300 light-years from Earth, routine meant everyone stayed alive. The mining crews were good people, volunteers all, pioneers who had signed up for 5-year tours to help humanity expand into the cosmos. That routine shattered when Lieutenant Commander James Park rushed into the control room, his face pale with excitement and terror. As the station's military liaison, Park was usually the calmest person aboard. Seeing him rattled sent immediate alarm through everyone present. "We've got a problem," he announced without preamble. Long-range sensors just picked up massive energy signatures approaching the system. Configuration unknown, but the size readings are off the charts. Sarah set down her tablet. "Pirates? Corporate raiders. Bigger than anything in our databases," Park replied, pulling up the sensor display on the main screen. "Much bigger. We're talking about ships the size of city blocks moving in formation." The control room fell silent as the crew stared at the approaching blips on the screen. Each contact was easily 10 times the size of Earth's largest military vessels. There were dozens of them, moving with the kind of precision that spoke of military discipline and overwhelming force. "Time to arrival?" Sarah asked, her engineering mind already calculating escape possibilities. 18 hours at current speed," Park replied. "I've already sent a priority message to Earth Command, but even with quantum entanglement communication, it'll take 6 hours for instructions to reach us." Sarah made the decision that would change everything. All mining operations cease immediately. Get the crews back to the station and prep for emergency evacuation. If these unknowns are hostile, I want our people ready to run. What they couldn't know was that the approaching fleet belonged to the Korthak Empire, and Admiral Zexthal himself was aboard the flagship. The conquest of the Altarian colonies had been so swift that the Admiral was looking for new challenges. When his scouts reported an unknown species operating in this remote system, he had decided to investigate personally. "Unknown ships detected, Admiral," reported his sensor officer. "Configuration is primitive by our standards, but they show signs of industrial development. They're harvesting resources from the asteroid field." Zexthal studied the tactical display with interest. The human station was tiny compared to Korthak installations, but it showed clear signs of advanced engineering. More intriguingly, the energy signatures suggested the use of fusion power and antimatter storage, technologies that most species didn't develop until they had spread across multiple star systems. "Curious," he mused. "They're clearly spacefaring, but their vessels are much smaller than we would expect from a species with this level of technology. Either they're very efficient builders, or they're newly spacefaring," finished his tactical officer, Korvash. "Perhaps we've encountered them early in their expansion phase." The Admiral's predatory grin widened. "How delightful. A species with advanced technology, but limited experience. They'll make excellent vassals once we demonstrate our superiority." Back on Kepler 442, the crew was discovering that evacuation would be more complicated than hoped. The mining operation couldn't simply be abandoned. Too much valuable equipment would be lost, and the automated systems needed proper shutdown procedures to avoid environmental contamination. "How long for a clean shutdown?" Park asked Sarah, as they watched the approaching fleet grow larger on sensors. Minimum 4 hours if we want to avoid leaving a toxic mess for whatever comes after us, she replied. The antimatter containment systems alone need 2 hours to safely discharge. Park weighed their options. Standard military doctrine said to run immediately when faced with overwhelming force. But these miners weren't military. They were civilians who had invested years of their lives in this operation. The pragmatic choice was to hope these unknowns were peaceful and try to make contact. Open a channel, he decided. Let's see if they're interested in talking. The message went out on all standard galactic frequencies, transmitted in mathematical progressions that any technological species should recognize as intelligent communication. The response came faster than expected and in perfect English. Unidentified vessels. This is Admiral Zexthal of the Korthak Empire. Your species is unknown to us. Identify yourselves and prepare for inspection. The voice that came through the speakers was like nothing any human had ever heard. A deep, rumbling growl that suggested massive lung capacity and vocal cords designed for intimidation. The universal translator built into Earth's communication systems had clearly worked overtime to convert whatever the speaker was actually saying into recognizable language. This is Lieutenant Commander James Park of the Terran Mining Consortium, aboard Station Kepler 442. Park responded, trying to keep his voice steady. We're conducting legal mining operations in unclaimed space under interstellar commerce law. The response was immediate and chilling. Alien laughter that sounded like grinding metal came through the speakers, followed by words that would haunt Parr for the rest of his life. Interstellar commerce law? Unclaimed space? How amusing. There is no law in a galaxy except the law of strength, small human. And all space belongs to those strong enough to take it. The communication channel remained open as the Korthak fleet continued its approach. Through it, the humans could hear alien voices speaking in their natural language, harsh, guttural sounds that the translator didn't even attempt to process. It was the sound of predators discussing prey. Admiral, Sarah spoke up, we're civilians here. Non combatants. If you're claiming this system, we'll withdraw peacefully. There's no need for conflict. Civilians? Zexthal's voice carried what might have been amusement. How refreshingly naive. There are no civilians in the galaxy, human Sarah. There are only the strong and the weak, the predators and the prey. Which are you? It was a challenge that went to the heart of everything humans were, though Park didn't fully understand it yet. Earth's history was written in conflict and survival, but humans had always tried to balance their aggressive instincts with cooperation and compassion. Most humans saw their capacity for violence as a necessary evil, not a source of pride. We're engineers and miners, Park replied. We build things and solve problems. We don't look for fights, but we don't back down from them either. The alien laughter came again, but this time it carried a different tone. Don't back down? How interesting. Very well, humans. We shall see what you're made of. The first Korthak ship to reach visual range was a nightmare made manifest. It looked like someone had crossed a battleship with a living creature, all organic curves, and weapon ports that resembled mouths full of teeth. As it approached the mining station, gun ports opened along its hull like eyes awakening. Admiral, Sarah tried one more time, our government on Earth will be willing to negotiate. There's no need for violence. We can work something out that benefits both our species. Negotiate. Zexthal's voice carried genuine surprise. With whom would we negotiate? You are miners and engineers, you said so yourself. You are not warriors. Your opinion on anything matters only if you can back it with force. That was when the Korthak made their first crucial mistake in understanding humanity. They assumed that because the humans called themselves civilians, they were helpless. They had no frame of reference for a species where every adult citizen was capable of violence when necessary, where engineers and miners were trained in weapons use and combat tactics as a matter of course. Warning shots, Zexthal commanded. Let's see how these humans react to a demonstration of our power. The Korthak warship fired a spread of plasma bolts that splashed against the mining station's shields. The energy barriers, designed to deflect asteroid impacts and radiation, flared bright blue as they absorbed the attack. Damage was minimal, but the message was clear. What happened next surprised everyone aboard the Korthak fleet. Instead of immediately surrendering or attempting to flee, the mining station's defensive systems activated. Point defense turrets emerged from concealed ports and began tracking the Korthak ship. Emergency blast doors sealed, and the station's power output spiked as Sarah redirected energy from mining operations to shields and weapons. Fascinating, Zexthal murmured. They're preparing to fight. A mining station, crewed by civilians, is preparing to fight a Korthak warship. But what truly caught the Admiral's attention was the communication channel, which was still open. He could hear the humans coordinating their response, and their voices carried no panic, no fear-induced paralysis. They were calm, professional, and grimly determined. Weapons online, he heard someone report. Shield generators at maximum output, came another voice. Emergency message transmitted to Earth Command with full tactical data on hostile vessels, reported a third. And then, most shocking of all, he heard the human commander give an order that no Korthak had expected. All stations, prepare to defend. If they want to fight, we'll give them one they won't forget. For the first time in his military career, Admiral Zexthal found himself truly curious about an enemy. These humans weren't behaving like any species the Korthak had encountered before. They knew they were outmatched, knew they were facing certain death, and yet they chose to fight anyway. Sir, his tactical officer reported, the humans have targeted our forward shields with some kind of mining laser array. Power output is significant. The Admiral watched as the human station's industrial equipment was rapidly converted to weapons. Mining lasers designed to slice through asteroid rock were refocused into coherent beams that could cut through starship armor. Or haulers were being loaded with what appeared to be improvised explosives. Most remarkably, he could see space-suited figures moving across the station's hull, manually installing additional weapons that looked like they had been constructed from spare parts in the last hour. They're adapting their civilian technology for combat use, Korvash observed. In real time, while under threat. I've never seen anything like it. Neither had Zexthal. Every other species they had encountered either immediately surrendered when faced with superior force, or fought with traditional military equipment in predictable patterns. These humans were doing something entirely different. They were innovating in the middle of a crisis. Admiral, came a transmission from the human station. This is Commander Park. You've made your point about superior firepower, but you've also made a mistake. You've shown us what we're up against, and now we're angry. I suggest you reconsider your approach, because humans don't just fight to win. We fight to make sure the other guy learns never to threaten us again. The words were spoken with such quiet conviction that Zexthal actually paused to consider them. In all his centuries of conquest, no prey species had ever warned him about their capabilities. They had begged, they had bargained, they had threatened, but they had never simply stated facts about their own dangerous nature. The Admiral was beginning to suspect that the humans might be more interesting opponents than he had initially assumed. Admiral Zexthal had conquered 47 star systems, faced down the most feared warriors in the galaxy, and never once questioned the outcome of a battle. The humans were about to change that. Begin the assault, he commanded, expecting the usual swift capitulation that followed a demonstration of Korthak firepower. But try to keep some of them alive for questioning. I want to understand what makes this species think they can threaten us. The lead Korthak warship, Death's Embrace, moved into attack position. Its massive plasma cannons charged with energy that could vaporize a small moon. Against a single mining station crewed by civilians, it should have been a massacre. Instead, it became the first military surprise the Korthak Empire had experienced in over a century. The humans didn't wait to be shot at. The moment the Korthak ship's weapons powered up, every defensive system on Kepler 442 opened fire simultaneously. Mining lasers that normally carve through solid rock focused their beams on the warship's forward shields. The energy output was staggering. Industrial equipment designed for maximum efficiency unleashed against military-grade defenses. Impossible, Corvash exclaimed as his tactical display lit up with warnings. Their civilian equipment is penetrating our shields. How is that possible? Zexthal watched in fascination as the human mining lasers operated in perfect synchronization, their beams converging on single points in his ship's defensive grid. It was a technique that required split-second timing and mathematical precision. Most military forces couldn't coordinate that well after years of training. They're not just converting mining equipment, he realized. They're using industrial precision targeting. Their mining operations require the kind of accuracy that our weapons officers train for decades to achieve. But the humans were just getting started. As the Death's Embrace moved to return fire, Sarachen's engineering team revealed the next surprise. The mining station's massive or haulers, normally used to transport raw materials, came screaming out of the asteroid field at maximum velocity. Each hauler was packed with several tons of processed antimatter. The station's emergency fuel supply converted into the largest bombs humans had ever created. They weren't sophisticated weapons, just brute force applications of the most destructive substance known to science. Incoming projectiles, the Korthak sensor officer reported. They appear to be cargo vessels, loaded with antimatter, Korvash added, his voice tight with sudden respect. Each one contains enough explosive force to level a city. The Korthak point defense systems opened fire, destroying most of the improvised missiles before they could reach their target. But humans have been fighting wars long before they reached the stars, and they understood the principle of overwhelming an enemy's defenses. The first wave of or haulers was followed by a second, then a third. Cargo containers, maintenance pods, even personal shuttlecraft came screaming in from every direction. Most carried conventional explosives, but a few held surprises that the Korthak hadn't expected. That last one contained some kind of electronic warfare device, the communications officer reported as the ship's systems flickered. Our targeting computers are experiencing interference. Admiral Zexthal found himself in the unprecedented position of having to take evasive action against a civilian installation. The humans had turned their entire operation into an integrated weapons system, using every piece of equipment they had in ways that no military strategist would have predicted. Sir, Korvash reported, they've got teams in environmental suits outside their station. They're manually aiming some kind of improvised railgun. Through the viewports, they could see spacesuited figures clinging to the mining station's hull. They had somehow rigged together a magnetic accelerator using parts from the processing equipment. It was crude, dangerous, and absolutely should not have worked against a military-grade warship. It worked anyway. The improvised railgun fired a stream of refined metal slugs at a significant fraction of light speed. Each projectile was barely the size of a fist, but at those velocities, they hit the Korthak shields like miniature supernovas. The Death's Embrace shuddered under the impact as its defensive systems struggled to adapt. "This is ridiculous," Zexthal growled. "We're being outfought by miners using improvised weapons. Order the second ship to join the attack." But even as the Bone Crusher moved to assist its flagship, the humans revealed their most shocking capability yet. Commander Park's voice came across the communication channel, calm and professional despite the chaos around him. "Admiral, you should know that everything you've seen so far has been delaying tactics. We've been buying time for the real surprise." On the edge of the system, space suddenly twisted and folded. A rift opened in the fabric of reality itself, and through it came 3 ships bearing the markings of the Terran Defense Force. They were smaller than the Korthak vessels, sleek and predatory, but they moved with a deadly grace that spoke of purpose-built military design. "This is Captain Elena Vasquez of the TDF Indomitable," came a new voice. "We received Commander Park's emergency beacon. Korthak vessels, you are in violation of Terran territorial claims and have committed acts of aggression against civilian targets. Stand down immediately or face the consequences. Admiral Zexthol's 4 eyes widened in surprise. The human mining station hadn't been waiting for rescue. It had been calling for reinforcements. And somehow, those reinforcements had arrived faster than should have been possible. How did they get here so quickly? Corvash demanded. Our intelligence indicated that the nearest human military installation was over 100 light-years away. The answer came from the humans themselves, as Captain Vasquez continued her transmission. For your information, Admiral, humans don't just build mining stations. We build jump gates. That mining operation has been connected to our defense network since the day it came online. That was when the Korthak began to understand that they had misread the human expansion pattern entirely. What they had assumed was a small, isolated outpost was actually part of a vast network of interconnected installations. The humans hadn't just been mining asteroids. They'd been building infrastructure. The TDF ships opened fire with weapons that the Korthak had never encountered before. Instead of energy beams or plasma bolts, they launched swarms of intelligent projectiles that adapted their attack patterns in real time. The missiles moved like living things, dodging point defense fire and coordinating with each other to overwhelm the Korthak shields. Their weapons are learning our defensive patterns, the tactical officer reported in amazement. Each missile is sharing data with the others and adjusting its approach accordingly. But what truly shocked Admiral Zexthal was the realization that the human weapons were not trying to destroy his ships outright. Instead, they were systematically disabling key systems, weapons, engines, communications, with surgical precision. They're not trying to kill us, he said in wonder. They're trying to capture us. Captain Vasquez's voice confirmed his suspicion. Korthak vessels, your weapons, and propulsion systems have been disabled. Prepare to be boarded. We have some questions about your claims of territorial expansion, and we're very interested in learning more about your technology. The boarding pods that launched from the TDF ships were unlike anything the Korthak had expected. Instead of the crude battering rams most species use for ship-to-ship assault, these were sophisticated penetration vehicles that could cut through armor with molecular precision and establish secure environmental barriers. When the human Marines came through the breaches, Admiral Zexthal got his first close look at the species that had just defeated his fleet. They were smaller than Korthak warriors, but they moved with a fluid efficiency that spoke of extensive training. Their equipment was advanced, but practical, designed for function rather than intimidation. Most unsettling of all, they didn't seem afraid. Every other species the Korthak had encountered showed clear signs of fear when facing Korthak warriors up close. These humans looked curious. Admiral Zexthal, I presume? The lead Marine removed her helmet, revealing a scarred face and eyes that held the kind of calm confidence that came from surviving countless battles. Colonel Sarah Michel, Tehran Marine Corps. You and I need to have a conversation. The Admiral found himself in the unprecedented position of being a prisoner of war. Around him, his crew was being systematically disarmed and secured by human troops who worked with machine-like efficiency. There was no brutality, no unnecessary violence, just professional competence that was somehow more intimidating than any display of raw aggression. Your species fights differently than any we have encountered, Zexthal observed as the colonel secured his weapons. You coordinate like a hive mind, but think like individuals. You use civilian equipment more effectively than most military forces. How? Colonel Michel smiled grimly. Because we've been fighting for survival our entire evolutionary history, Admiral. Every human knows how to fight, because on Earth, everything is trying to kill you. The difference is we learn to fight smart instead of just fighting hard. That statement would haunt Zexthal for years to come. As the human boarding teams systematically captured his entire task force without losing a single soldier, he began to suspect that the Korthak Empire had encountered something far more dangerous than just another spacefaring species. They had found humans. Back on the mining station, Commander Park was coordinating with Captain Vasquez to secure the area, and prepare for the inevitable Korthak retaliation. But his mind was already working on the bigger picture. "Captain," he said during their planning session, "these Korthak mentioned an empire, territorial expansion, dozens of conquered systems. This wasn't just a first contact gone wrong. This was a scouting force testing our defenses." Vasquez nodded grimly. "Which means they'll be back with more ships and better intelligence. But they made one crucial mistake today." "What's that?" "They assumed that because we called ourselves civilians and miners, we were helpless. They don't understand that every human is a soldier when they need to be. And now they've given us a reason to be soldiers." As the captured Korthak ships were prepared for transport back to Earth for analysis, none of the humans present realized how completely this single engagement had shattered the enemy's worldview. The Korthak Empire had built its entire identity around being the ultimate expression of survival evolution. But they had never met a species that had spent its entire existence turning survival into an art form. They were about to learn what happened when apex predators met the galaxy's ultimate survivors. The war that would determine the fate of the galaxy had just begun with a mining station's refusal to back down. And Admiral Zexthal, sitting in a human detention cell, was beginning to understand that his empire's claims of ultimate superiority were about to be tested like never before.